So this over here is the Ryzen 9950x3D, the absolute beast that AMD has created. And if you remember a review, I explained that I'm testing this CPU on a lower frequency, lower than what AMD recommended. And then there's the comment section that says, why do you use it on a slower speed? You should, use it faster because you're bottlenecking and capping the CPU what it can do. Let's find out then. Okay, so here's what I did. I took this kit of RAM. This is the Renegade Kingston Fury, and this has the AMD Expo settings as well. You can run them at 6400 megatransfers per second. But the thing is, because the full review went with the 5600 megatransfers per second, I changed the RAM speed now and wanted to see how fast we can actually run this kit of RAM with that CPU, but also what is the actual performance difference? I mean, is it actually worth it when you upgrade the speed of the RAM, or should you actually get larger capacity as a creator? Let's see the results. It's so annoying. I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars to just change my Windows wallpaper just because my Windows isn't licensed. Well, why don't you try hookies? That's a ton cheaper, and if you use the code TN20, you get it even cheaper. What do you mean? How do I get it and how is it possible? Well, see this video here, or the one you're watching? Click in the link on the video description, add the Windows 11 CD product to the cart, proceed to checkout, add the code TN20 for the extra discount. So what, the Windows 11 Pro OEM key is just $23.22? Yeah, choose the preferred payment option and complete the purchase. The key will be available on the purchased orders in a few moments. Copy the key and paste it into your Windows activation settings, and you're all done. Well, that was easy. Is that Ryan Gosling? No. Anyway, by the way, the same discount code also works website-wide, so go check out other products, maybe like Microsoft Office. In terms of the CPUs, all of the CPUs have something what's called an IMC, Integrated Memory Controller. And from factory, it comes with a certain spec. And often with the new generation, the IMC spec also goes up, which means it's the basic speed what the RAM can run. So on the CPU reviews, I always test the CPUs with the stock setting, what Intel AMD says is the stock. You can easily find it on their website. When you go on 9950X specs, you can see that the memory speed is rated at 5600 megatransfers per second, but then AMD tells you on the review guide to use 6000 megahertz or faster RAM gets the best results. But obviously, I did my own thing. The same we do with Intel. Intel says use faster RAM. I'm saying no, I'm going to use the one that's actually rated with your actual CPU. So in terms of specs, I'm actually using lower speed of RAM, but then what is the actual difference? But in terms of the actual specs, you can see that the Core Ultra 200 series, what's the latest one right now, that is actually 6400 megatransfers per second rated speed, IMC. But then the Ryzen 9000 is rated at 5600 megatransfers per second. So Intel is actually, the base spec is 200 megahertz higher. So what I did was I used it on 5600 megatransfers per second, then 400 megahertz higher, 6000, then 6400 and 6800. And I also tried 7200, but we actually crashed on that. Memory kit didn't allow it to go that fast. Now, would it be able to run 7200 64 gigabytes? Probably, but you'd have to have a memory kit that would actually have that speed, because the 6800 I'm actually also running out of the kit specs, as you can see, but it was completely stable at 6800. I had no issues, but 72 I started to have some issues. So the four speeds then, looking at 5600 to 6800 in Photoshop, what we can see here is when moving to 6000, we're getting a couple of % difference. In 6400, we're actually a little bit slower than 6000, and then 6800 we're again slower than 6000 but slightly faster than 5600. All of these results here are within a couple of % of each other. Okay, so does it make difference in Photoshop? Not really. I thought Photoshop is one of those programs that actually uses quite a lot of RAM and there will be difference. but interestingly, not at all. Bear in mind, to get accurate measurement of this, I've done the test at least 5 times, if not more, to make sure that there's no anomalies in there. Okay, delete this one. This was massively higher, massively lower. So I can get like a one ballpark figure of the results. They're all really the same. So I didn't see any difference in Photoshop. Let's move on to Lightroom Classic. 6000 megahertz here, again, within margin of error, only 0.9% faster, which kind of doesn't mean anything. Increasing it to 6400 megatransfers per second. Interestingly, we're now down 4.8%. That again, to me, shows that there is really no difference. 6800 megatransfers per second, again, a little bit lower. So even in Lightroom Classic, I don't see it make a ton of difference. Should you buy a faster RAM for Lightroom Classic? Probably not. What about video editing? In Adobe Premiere Pro, moving on to 6000 megahertz. Again, we're within 1% of each other. Can you see? Look, the biggest difference is GPU effects, which is about 2.7% slower, but again, within margin of error really. The 6400 megatransfers per second is again the same, not that big of a difference. The 6800 is now a little bit faster, and interestingly, the raw score there has a big impact there. As you can see, raw standard score, we're about 13% faster, so a little bit of an increase there, but generally, again, not a big difference at all. So even in video editing, Adobe Premiere Pro, there's not that big of a difference. Adobe After Effects, moving on to there, because After Effects uses a lot of RAM for preview. So if you've got a lot of RAM and faster RAM, is it going to make a difference? As you can see, 6000 megahertz within 1%. 6400 is actually slightly slower, so that kind of means the same. 6800, again, within the same ballpark. So I don't see any difference in After Effects when running these tests. So having a faster RAM, not that big of a deal here in After Effects. What does make a difference is larger amount of RAM. So you can store more things on the SSD. After Effects has changed a little bit, and what you will see is you don't have to have that large amounts of capacity of RAM if you want really good performance for After Effects. But still, having more RAM for After Effects is better, but faster RAM doesn't really make a difference. What about DaVinci Resolve? Here, 6000 megahertz, can you see? Within 1%. 6400, again, within 1%. 6800, within 1%. Okay, maybe the long GOP is 2.3% faster. What we're talking about here is a couple of percent faster, so is it really worth spending that much extra to get 6800 megatransfers per second rather than 56? I don't see any difference. What about Blender? Done all the tests here, and again, as you can see, all the speeds in the same ballpark, no difference. What about V-Ray, another 3D editing application, within margin of error on all of them? What is the conclusion then for creators? Should we be buying the faster RAM? Is it going to make a massive difference on AMD? As you can see here, not really. Going with faster speed of RAM doesn't really make that big of a difference in what I have seen here. Should you buy faster RAM? Well, I think no. Sticking with a lower frequency RAM will not only save you money, but will run your system stable as well. Because whenever you go above the rated spec on AMD right now, on the Ryzen 9000 is 5600 megatransfers per second, you actually start to introduce instability. Your programs might crash, or your system might crash because the IMC can't actually keep up with running the RAM that fast. Now, the other thing is actual latency, because lower latency obviously is better, but should we test this? Is lower latency actually going to make a difference? Maybe we should check that one out. But that means that we have to have different kits of the same speed, different latencies for the same speed. Comment below if you'd like to see that and which company should be used. But for now, stick with the stock setting, as you can see, and save your money. Here's the proof. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It actually makes a difference. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do want to build yourself the best bang for buck creator PC, then there's some build guides in the video description below. They will lead you to the latest guide and latest options. For whatever budget you have, you can build yourself a beast. So go check it out in the video description below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.